Dylan,
And
are we live?
we are live.
Okay, great. Want to welcome our guests, uh, local board leadership, and we'll get a chance to introduce them. But I want to also welcome the public, um, invite you to our roundtable. This is the first of four that we're going to have with local board leadership. I think it's good to have conversations to share ideas and figure out how we can work more effectively to bring about the kind of changes that everyone wants to see with our children. So I'm excited about it and really appreciate the local board leadership taking time out of their schedule to be with us. We're going to be on a first name basis. We have 3 questions that we're going to have open-ended questions, and we invite everyone to participate, our board members and the like, and really try to learn and to begin to create more of a working relationship. Okay, so we got that. All righty, and my pleasure. I'll be serving as the facilitator along with Chip Dashiell, our vice president of the state board, and with us will be Chi-Chin Chang and Lori Morrow. We'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in a minute. We're hosting this roundtable to really start a dialogue with the local boards. We have a lot in common, and it's just smart business for us to begin to share more. And in today's session, we really want to get your feedback on how things are going and how we can help you be successful. And also to talk about what we can do to implement, how can we work together to implement the blueprint. As I mentioned beforehand, we got a report from 1916, a report to the Maryland State General Assembly, and many of the issues that we're dealing with today were cited in that report. And I know there have been a number of efforts over the years that have resulted in some good successes. But really, how do we come together as partners, respecting our roles and responsibilities, but coming together as partners to figure out how to implement transformational change that will benefit our children, and actually it will benefit them for a lifetime. We can get this right. We can be the first ones in 100 years to really push this over the top. I'm excited about it. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm confident that we can do it. Want to also thank MABE and Francie Glendening for helping facilitate and sponsor these sessions. It's been really great. I had a wonderful time last year at the MABE conference and plan to come back again this year if Francie will have me. She may not, well, I didn't, I tried to do my best behavior, but for trying to be on your best behavior for 8 hours is pretty hard. So, but I'm hoping that Francie will let me come back. And, but we're really excited about this. I want to now give Chip an opportunity to make some opening comments, and then we'll hear from our state superintendent and then our board members at the state level. And then we'll give the local board members an opportunity to introduce themselves. So Chip.
Okay, thank you, Clarence. And I want to add my thanks as well to all of the participants who are joining this important conversation this evening. As Clarence has said, the state board and the State Department are working together to develop a strategic plan which will transform the educational experience for all Maryland students. And we feel and know that stakeholder engagement is a critical component of that planning process. Local boards of education are critically important stakeholders in both the development and implementation of our strategic plan. So I too look forward to listening this evening. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on how we can collaborate on this important initiative. We value your leadership. We value your experience in this shared mission to deliver a world-class education for all of the kids of Maryland. So I appreciate this opportunity. It's the first time, at least in my experience, that we have really had an opportunity to engage with our local boards of education in this important collaborative effort. And we have intentionally included you because you're so important to this process and how we complete the development and implementation of our plan. So thank you. I'm going to be a good listener. I want to hear what you think. And so I hope you will share openly and honestly with how we can do this collaboratively to get it right for the kids of our state. They deserve it. We're committed to it. All of us, I think, are dedicated to doing everything we can to make this initiative successful. So thank you for your participation. And I'll turn to our state superintendent, Mr. Mohammed Choudhury, for any remarks maybe that he would like to make.
All right. Good afternoon. I always say thank you for hanging out with us this evening. One of the things that is absolutely crucial, I've worked in. Turned off. All right, there you go. Is just a very tight partnership between an administration and its board, right? Like the leadership team.
Excuse me. I'm just gonna step away.
I'll be sure to make fun of my board president later for that. But in any case, I just want to thank you guys for making this time. I think it's absolutely crucial that one of the things in order to be successful is an administration and its board needs to have a tight partnership, right? Like that's regardless of both at the local level, at the state level, it doesn't work without that, right? Governance and administration is what makes student achievement happen. And so, and I think that is absolutely crucial. I mean, I know you already know this, but it's just, we can't take things like that for granted. And I think having a space to be able to talk about successes and talk about lessons learned and talk about how the state can be a support in that and what that work looks like. I mean, we are in the blueprint generation. And so, we are about to invest billions of dollars over the next 10 years in our education system, as well as completely reconceptualize things. You as a school system are figuring out how to take your starting pay to $60,000, implement a career ladder, lots of things going on. And, in order to pull that off, right, governance and administration have to work really well together. And it's not something I think you ever take for granted, right? It takes work and effort. It's like I put in a lot of work and energy, and the state board puts in that energy back towards me in order to be successful. So I'm really looking forward to on how we can use our work to help and support your efforts with your own administration and how to get that right. And I'm looking around the room, I see Arundel. Congratulations on your new superintendent. I'm really excited that you picked someone who has worked to transform school systems, who were low performing and transform. I have a special place in my heart. I see Kent County. I had a great time in Kent County. I was at Garnett at elementary shadowing a student. I spent time at Kent County High School and hung out in your makerspace, and also did a radio show interview, the only student radio station in Maryland. I loved my time there. And then of course, Prince George's, Dr. Golson and I talk often. We are, we are both part of a national network called Cheese for Change. And I've spent quite a bit of time, and you have disparities from high poverty schools, more affluent schools, and how do you build a system that serves every kid right. So I'm really excited that you guys are here today, and like I said, I'm really just here to listen, and please, I always end with this, share your truth, right? And that's important. So we really, and don't hold anything back. And so we can really take it in, because we're going to do a series of this, and it's really going to shape our organizational direction going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chu Chan?
Hi, thank you, President Crawford. And I think you and Vice President and Superintendent already lay out the ground. And I just want to welcome all the representative or superintendents from local school systems. And I'm looking forward to more future collaborations. I know we might hear something ugly. I'm willing to take it and take it from there where we need to stand up where we drop off. I think that's how we can move our education, and also, with you being accountable and engaged, and stay at this late hour with us. And I really appreciate that. I have my ears open for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori?
Good evening, everybody. I am Lori Morrow. I am the parent member of our state board, and I am a PGCPS parent. My daughter has just a few days left in middle school, so soon to be a high school parent again. But I welcome you all tonight. I look forward to the opportunity to engage with a wider group of Board of Ed members. I know Ms. Williams from many years in PGCPS now, but I look forward to good conversations tonight and continuing to do this work in a partnership across the state. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. So now at this time, have our local board leadership to introduce themselves. Sonya Williams.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sonya Williams, the Vice Chair of the Prince George's County Board of Education. I've been on the board now for 8 years, and so I'm excited to be here to share at this roundtable. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Robert Silkworth.
Thank you. I am happy to be here this evening as well. My name is Robert Silkworth, and I'm actually a 49-year veteran teacher, but I've been on the Arundel County Board of Ed since 2020, and I am currently the vice president.
Very good. Thank you. And then Joe Goetz.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. This is a great opportunity. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I am currently the board president for Kent County, as well as the president-elect for MABE. So I'm certainly, I'm coming here with one major hat on, but a partial kind of hat to the side. So thank you again for this.
Thank you. Thank you. And Nivek Johnson.
Hi, my name is Nivek Johnson.
Okay.
I'm the vice president of Kent County Board of Education. I'm also a public school teacher in Montgomery County, and I've been on the school board now for wrapping up my first term in December.
Okay.
I ran into him in my shadow in Montgomery County, and I was like, "What are you doing here in Montgomery County?" So I understand the connection.
Okay. And let me see. We didn't. Okay. So what I'd like to do then is just to jump right in, but first, just to mention again that we're live streaming. This roundtable is scheduled from about 6 to about 7:30. And this is an opportunity for the participants to talk about issues that are important. And we will, again, as mentioned, try to avoid mentioning names or particular schools or things of that nature but really we're just interested in getting feedback. We started about a year ago, the state board, and just reaching out to stakeholders and partners in Maryland. And we've started those conversations with a simple question: how is the state board doing? What are we doing well? But also help us identify what we areas for improvement. Oh, forgive me, Francie, I did not give you a chance to speak. Please forgive me.
Okay, I don't know. I was going to readily say that you're welcome back to the full conference again, but I don't know. I'm going to have to wait till see how this all ends up, Clarence.
I understand.
Probably because it looks like I'm in the witness protection program. The light in my office has changed, so that's probably why. Francie Glendening, this is my 10th, just finishing my 10th year as executive director of MABE, the enthusiastic executive director of MABE. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. So just to open it up, we just wanted to have just comments and free flowing. And if you could just help us get a sense from your perspective, how is the state board performing? How are we doing? What are we doing well? And where are there opportunities for improvement? And we're open, we're not going to be defensive. We really look forward to hearing what you have to say and how we can improve what we do. So.
Clarence, I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Please, yes, Joe.
Yeah, so, it's been really interesting. I mean, we're kind of all in this space right now where we are all somewhat coming out of the COVID pandemic. And there's this snapback effect, and how is that affecting, obviously, our students all the way up through the buildings to the board level. And what I will say is that right now, as we're here today, I've seen a huge improvement in communication, and this forum actually is another layer of improvement that we really haven't seen in the past. So it's very it's promising for me to see that there is this interaction, that my hope is that we actually then dial down into content specific, meaning, could it be blueprint? Could it be equity? Could it be, there's so many different things that we can look at. So I am extremely encouraged and excited that hopefully this process will continue. With that, I just want to say that, getting into the pandemic as it was happening, it was kind of silent, and from the state board standpoint. And so I don't mean to throw two curveballs at you, but I think this is an indication, this forum is an indication that things will change. Just to kind of dial back, when the pandemic was happening, at least in our system, and I'm talking with some of my colleagues across the state, it was very quiet from the state side. And I know that we were all trying to kind of, figure this out, and we were in a once in a 100-year pandemic. But I think my ask would be, just moving forward, what does that triage moment look like? If we do end up from the state Department of Education and from Baltimore, if we were to end up in another situation that would be horrible, but if we would, what does that look like? What are the steps? How do we get the communication out where folks are saying, the superintendent, Choudhury, or others, we hear you, we got your back, this is where we're coming from. And I think if we're able to build out that, I'll call it a triage plan or a plan of communication, I think that would be hugely beneficial. But again, going back to the positive, this is a fantastic forum. And I look forward to not only being here tonight, but also watching and looking at the subsequent meetings, because I think there's a real opportunity here for all of us to really combine. The last point I'll make, coming from the smallest school system in the state, is that it's not lost on me that because we are smaller or because we are across the bay that we're distant. But I think that there's, based on population and based on need and size of systems, there are some counties that end up kind of in the peripheral. And I just, as we continue to go down this path of collaboration, as we're seeing now, we're the first meeting tonight, and there's, two of us on from Kent County. I would certainly hope that we can continue this kind of full circle involvement where all voices are present, all voices are heard. We certainly have a great chance here to do something great.
Great. Just making some notes. Okay, all righty. Anyone else? Robert?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really look forward to hearing from some of my colleagues, and it's interesting to hear Mr. Goetz, and I appreciate everybody being here. This stakeholder engagement is critical. Now, as I said earlier, I did teach for 49 years. I might suggest that at some point in time, we're missing the most important stakeholder in this conversation. And I would suggest that that's our students, because our students need to be involved in a lot of these discussions. We can talk about our successes and our failures. If I talk about how's the state doing, I'm more interested in how are the students doing? How are the teachers doing? How are the families doing? When we entered into this school year, I wanted all of our children and our families to be able to return to a sense of normalcy. And as I look at this year, as it has gone by, I stay connected with schools. And I can tell you that from my standpoint, it was an extremely normal year. However, having said that, we still have challenges. Our students and our parents have obstacles, and we need to help them overcome those obstacles. Some of our teachers are very frustrated. Our students are very frustrated. We need to be focusing on safety, which I think all of our counties really do. But I think we also need to be focused on quite a few other things, such as teacher retention, teacher recruitment, and probably more importantly, the mental health of our students, teachers, staff, and families. During the last 2 years of my career, I have to tell you that I had at least 3 students who considered suicide, and I was able to help and intervene and help them. We had that before COVID, but I would suggest that we do still have that now, and it's been exacerbated. So perhaps mental health concerns would be the number one issue. This is a great way for us to kind of get together, and I look forward to all of the panels that are going to take place, and then also getting together face to face.
Yes.
I think people that know me know that I'm all about relationships, positive relationships, and we need to do a little bit of a better job to build those relationships between ourselves as board members in our county, other counties, at the state level, and all of our stakeholders. So thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are right on point, both sets of comments. And on the point about engaging students, we've held a number of roundtable sessions with different cross-cuts of students to get that. Also, we're going to be releasing at our June meeting some preliminary results from the statewide survey. I won't, but you'll see that the results are very much in line with what you're saying right here, and it's a start. We've got about 22,000 responses so far, somewhere in that range. Our goal was to get 15. We're at about 22, and I think you'll find the results and the consistency, whether it's urban or suburban or rural, teachers, students, business community. There's an enormous amount of consistency in terms of what Maryland says it wants from its school system. So we're excited about it. Anyone else with any additional comments about?
I think I'll jump in.
Yes, please.
I think, first of all, this is a great opportunity for us to have this conversation. And it's not a response to a survey or an email to have these, the back and forth. I think is important for us to be able to communicate on the fly and get all the context, all the emotion and everything. So I appreciate this opportunity. I think that we need to have these collective conversations because each of the LEAs are dealing with the same situation: mental health, security, children that need support when they leave our school, the four walls of our schools. One community may have found a tip that another community can use. And I really appreciate what MABE does for the jurisdictions, just because we have that opportunity to speak not only at our conferences, but also in some of the meetings, committee meetings and so forth. So we are able to share there. But if we're able to share not only between the districts, but also with the State Board of Education, I think that can make a quicker change in the needs of all of the jurisdictions. If we're speaking with the state and the state is hearing, what each jurisdiction has to say from a board's perspective, because I know you all speak with the superintendents on a regular basis, but hearing from the board members and seeing what we see, what we get from constituents directly, I think this is a great opportunity. And I too hope that we continue this. I think one thing that I like to see in my approach to being a board member is I always speak about the positive. We work hard behind closed doors in dealing with the challenges and focusing the outcomes, and sharing those outcomes. But I think that if we share the positive more, it gives other people examples of what they can achieve. It sort of sets a bar. If we're always talking about what we're doing wrong and what we need to improve, we're not giving people the example of what they can achieve. And so I think that we should show that more often so that people can know that, yes, we will always have challenges. We're always going to have challenges, but we are reaching some of the goals that we set forth. We reach that goal and we don't share it like we should, I think, so that people know, oh, we did achieve this that we set out to do. And then people will say, oh, if they can do it over there, maybe we can do it over here. And so I think it's always great to share the positive, to set those examples, set those bars. And the other thing is, in the pandemic, we were pushed into using technology. And I believe we all achieved the highest that we could do based on the fact that one day we were sitting in a board meeting and the next day we had to pull kids out of school and figure out how to educate them, virtually. We also had to learn how to operate virtually. We had to learn how to communicate in this virtual. And I think that those lessons learned can continue to be used in throughout the state. And, Joe and I, we sit on the board together. So I listen to what's going on in his community and take some of that stuff in. And I hope that he takes some of the things that I share to his community. And some of those lessons learned and challenges that they were able to overcome, I brought them back to the board. And so I think it's important that we share those lessons learned and use those lessons to figure out how we can push ourselves to the next level using technology outside of a pandemic. We were able to do very well in the pandemic, but let's sort of, and I think Joe sort of hit on it, we really should be doing some scenario planning for the potential. We're already doing a lot of things that could help us be prepared for, the worst case scenario. But if we collectively look at doing some type of scenario planning so we can be prepared for the next super challenge, when it hits, because if we remember, I think we were in the middle of, when this hit, the pandemic hit, we were in the middle of a superintendent search for the state. And we ran into the pandemic and then, there were challenges financially. So there was a lot going on in that moment. So I can give some grace in the communication because everybody had to figure out how to be at home and do whatever they do. But if we sort of prepare, maybe have a subcommittee looking at potential scenarios that we see happening, because I know the next big thing is, the good thing is we're about to end the school year, but we're paying $5 a gallon for gas. That is going to be a big impact on our school systems to transport kids to and from school. We don't know what it's going to look like at the end of the summer. That is something that we should be sort of thinking about. We can't automatically all go to electric buses, but let's figure out how can we sort of deal with some of the things that we see on the horizon and the potentials that we don't see on the horizon. So I think lesson learned from this COVID, let's sort of look at how to deal with the future potential issues that we may have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Absolutely. Mr. Johnson, again, please give me your first name. I want to make sure I say it correctly.
Nivek.
Nivek.
Great discussion. Telling back to the beginning question, one of the things that I've noticed in our educational system, especially the state of Maryland, is that we don't have it is clear to sometimes us as governance officials, the clear distinct role between a local school system and the State Board of Education. A lot of times parents or stakeholders come to us with State Board of Education issues, and they're asking us to solve those problems. Well, we can't solve those problems. So I think one of the clear things that moving forward with the partnerships such as this is really defining what is our role as a local Board of Education and what is the role of the State Board of Education and the State Superintendent. I think that would help a myriad of concerns from stakeholders. President Goetz said it best, that at the start of the pandemic, there was a communication gap, and it was logical why there was a communication gap. However, there is still, in my eyes, there's still a communication gap. There are times when we are turning in grants, or we're turning in plans, and we're getting plans back because there are changes that need to be made, but sometimes those changes that need to be made were never conveyed, and the applications are conveyed in the procedure to submit those documents. And that hinders the process as we could be moving on to improve our educational system. We are sitting there to try to fix things that are coming from the state down. And the last point of this is, what do we define and what do we expect out of our students? It's one thing to say, we have our state graduation requirements, but what does that look like full circle for every student? What does that look like when we take it apart? What does that look like for the student who speaks English language? What does that look like for the student who is disabled? What does that look like for the student who is homeless? What does that look like for the student who is African American, Black? I believe we create one universal education system, and we expect our educators to implement that. And we expect them to carry that through. But at times, a lot of the direction is looking, what does the state want? What are we expecting our students to come back each way? And then taking that in turn and now working with our families, finding a family engagement model. That is something we're struggling with this time. And we've been struggling with family engagement, but finding a family engagement model that can really support the universal education of each child and also support the family structure. Because a lot of times our parents and our families, our caregivers, don't want to do anything with education simply because they've been hurt by the system. So how do we ensure them that this is a system that's not going to hurt them and hurt their child, but to support them, to make it a universal circle? So I would like us to see us really take that dive and continue these conversations.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Francie?
You have enough time for me to say a few things?
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, I'm very pleased. As I said, this is my 10th year here. And I know throughout the years, we've had some times where we didn't communicate as well between the local boards and the state board, but I think we're on a very good track. And when I look at not only this effort, but when I looked at the timeline for you all in the development of your strategic plan, you sought input on the front end. Then presumably, I think you and I spoke, Clarence, that you're going to have after you have a draft plan, I think, is there a time then to have input again? And then, which is really crucial. Same thing with the overall plan for the blueprint. All those things, I think that each stage, having folks realize that you legitimately want input, and then not saying that whatever the revised document is incorporates everything, but it looks like there was a thoughtful reflection on the comments that were made and the input that was given. We have MABE has one of its board service academies. It's called The Trust Edge, and it's based on a book by a man named David Horsiger, which is called The Trust Edge. And in it, he talks about how the trust is really the most important commodity in the business world, and it's most important commodity or resource within organizations. And so that would be between board members at the local board level, between local board members in their communities, their students, the trust, whether there's trust between the state board and the local boards and the state board. I think that that's something that is extremely important. And they talk, I'm going to just say for about 2 more minutes, they talks about the pillars of trust, which as clarity, compassion, character, competency, commitment, connection, contribution, and consistency. And if you think about all those elements, they really build upon the trust. We've established this now, and we're building on that. And I think the consistency and the clarity and the commitment and character, all those elements, as we move along to keep ensuring that those are with us in our actions and our behavior between one another and the community. So that's what I have to say.
Great. From the superintendent or from our board, or any comments, additional things?
Yeah, I'd like to just comment on what Francie just said, because I think it is an important point. And I think what the state board and the State Department have tried to do in the strategic planning process is, yes, in the beginning, we did a survey and we sought input, and that is critically important. But I think what we really, really want is not just input, but also investment in the plan. For us not just to feel, well, I've completed a survey and I've done my part. No, what we're trying to get is ownership. Having an investment in the plan so that the local boards feel, well, yes, I know what is being planned. I had an opportunity to provide input on that, but I understand what the plan is about, and I like it, and I'm invested in it, and I want to feel that I too own it. I think we would like that from all our stakeholders, of course, but it's the local boards who truly, with the superintendents, who are ultimately going to play a vital role in implementation of the plan. And it will be successful when they can say, I have ownership in this plan. This is not just something that I've been given. This is something I have participated in. I have thought about it carefully. I like what it says, and I want to see it be successful. Because without that, ultimately it won't be. So I just stress what you say, Francie, because it is important at every stage that we are truly engaged and that we are communicating and we are listening and we are feeling that our stakeholders are invested and committed to the success of the plan, just like we are.
Any other comments from this? One of the things, oh, Lori, please.
Oh, I was just going to add a quick comment. So, I mean, I literally started on the state board March of 2020 when things were shutting down, but I appreciate the comments about communication and kind of the trajectory that we're on. I feel like for me, that has been something that we've been very deliberate about, and really trying to connect better with parents and students myself. And I also wanted to comment, Mr. Johnson made the comment about what the state's responsible for versus the local. I get a lot of that same stuff from the other side, trying to explain to parents and students, you know, here's what state law says, here's what state policy says, here's what local policy says, trying to make sure that they know the right channels, because that's a big struggle for people, trying to know how they get solutions at the right level. So we're all working on that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Chu-Chin?
Yes, I want to tag on that. Thank you for your honesty, feedback about all the things that we can improve more. But I think we are still, as a Board of Education level, they were also focusing on mental health for all students who needs it. And I think we're expanding it to not just the students, but the family and the teachers and staff too. Yeah, that would be also important to be inclusive. Yeah, thank you.
So when you see our survey in a couple of weeks, you'll see that mental health and the like is a major topic across the board. And as we work through the plan, we're going to look at that. One of the notes I made was that we'll come back to you to talk about maybe some scenario planning going into the start of next school year. What are the issues that you see, and how can we as a team begin to look at that? You know, the fall is when flu season, and perhaps we're going to see another wave of COVID variant or whatever, and the gas issues. But I think I made a note that we're going to, we'll reach back to you for some ideas about how to do that, involving the state superintendent and maybe some of the local superintendents as well, to just look at how do we position ourselves as best as possible. Communications, we 100% agree. We have a long way to go. We're doing better. Our goal is to be as open and transparent as we possibly can on the issues and engagement, and recognize that we don't have all the answers. We need your help. We need everybody's help to figure out what is a way forward in this. So this has been great. We move to the second question is, how can we help you be more successful in educating your children? What can the state board do as we look at policies, or how policies, COMAR, or regulations, strategies, or whatever? Are there things that we could do differently that would help you carry out your responsibilities in your communities? Any suggestions or thoughts about that? Robert?
That's a great question. So I have a few comments.
Please.
Our students and our teachers, they need more time in the classroom without mandates placed on them that's going to take away their time. Our teachers need to teach, our students need to be able to learn. every teacher has their own bag of tricks and they know their students. And so we need to let them be the experts that they are. Many of our teachers feel like that their hands are tied because time is taken away. Retention of teachers is a huge issue, I would suggest, for all of our districts. I think the blueprint helps, but it also hinders. And when I say hinders, I'm talking specifically about the National Board Certification outlined in the blueprint. And when I first looked at that, I said, I thought this is great. But then when I realized that it's inequitable, because there are many teachers who simply don't have a pathway to earn that additional money or to get that National Board Certification. One of our teachers in my department a couple of years ago was our Teacher of the Year and became Maryland Teacher of the Year, and she's still teaching, but she could not become a National Board Certified teacher because there's no pathway for her in the subject that she teaches. The incentives that are provided in the blueprint for our at-need schools, I think they're great, but I believe they're also based on test scores. And I taught in what I consider to be a highly challenged and at-need school for many years. And that school right now is not recognized as an at-need school, when in fact, by so many other factors, it is absolutely an at-need school. And back to the recruiting of our new teachers, again, that's a huge issue. In recent years, we have had many people that have decided to be career changers. Many very, very expert folks, and they tell us that they have the desire, they have the will and the experience to teach, and they have a degree, but they may not necessarily have all of the certification or the coursework that they might need. And some of them feel like they're thwarted in that effort because they're asked to take certain things that maybe they really wouldn't necessarily need. And so my comment is that maybe we should be taking a look at that, particularly as we're still dealing with the COVID. Thanks.
Okay. All righty. Great.
I think I'll jump in.
Please, absolutely.
I think that one of the biggest things that I think you can help us with as a jurisdiction is not changing mid-range, the way we evaluate and the way we test. When I say mid-range, my first son graduated in 2016, and when he entered public school, we evaluated success one way. And by the time he finished, we were evaluating success another way. And as he was leaving high school, I believe we went into the, I don't know why it's slipping my mind. We started to teach a completely different way. And so I think that it sort of puts undue stress on parents when we change how we evaluate or test or educate students as kids are leaving the school system. So those kids that were in high school, and we went to Common Core. Those kids that were leaving high school now had to, if you were in 11th grade or 10th grade, you had to learn differently. And I think that puts an undue challenge on parents, teachers, and families when we change the curriculum midway through a child's educational matriculation through the school system. So I think we should sort of look at how we implement new ways of education, and consider those kids that are nearly finished, consider those kids that are midway through, and look at how we implement or initiate those programs. Another thing I think would be helpful is early intervention, and collaborating across the state different departments. If we're able to reach families early, meaning prior to them even entering into the school system, ensuring that they have the resources needed to have a child enter the school system ready, then we can do better to help children succeed throughout the school system. We know that when a child is born, they have to they get a Social Security card, they get medical records. We know that so we know when children are born. And I think if we are able to hold the hand of the parents once they're born, we can help them come into the school system more ready. And I just think collaborating across the different departments at the state level would be very helpful to helping those kids become ready, pre-K ready. We do that in Prince George's County. We have relationships with some of our daycare centers, relationships with some of our pediatricians to sort of get in front of the parents to say, this is the expectation of what a pre-K4, pre-K5 student should look like. Here is a relationship with a local library, the reading times and things like that. But if we can do that at a state level, especially in those jurisdictions that are small, that are rural, that may not have as many resources as Prince George's County has, I think that it could help. It could help us improve across the state with those pre-K ready students and having them come into the school ready. And I think that's all I covered, all three: early intervention, collaboration across state departments, and considering how we change mid-range when we're teaching our students.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great points. Nivek?
One of the things that I have noticed, both as an educator and as a school board member, is to Ms. Williams' point, is we see when we look at kindergarten readiness, and then we look at third grade data, there's a big shift, and we focus so much on those testable grades, 3rd through 12th. And I think somewhere we miss that K to 2 range, where a lot of those basic skills are being taught. How do we create a system from the state down that supports those grades in that monitoring, that active monitoring of those grades, and really looking at a lot of, some of our school districts use NWEA, but really looking at from a state aspect, what does that look like in that 1st and 2nd grade, so that our students are fully prepared when they come into 3rd grade and are up to readiness. And that can look plethora of ways. So really looking at that, that early education, primary educational side of it, whether it be testing or whatever. The other point that, that I would like to see from the State Department and the State Board of Education is just a presence. It's one thing to know we have a State Board of Education and a state superintendent, and I have seen the transformation. I've seen, the transformation in our teacher certification hub. I've seen the transformation in our social media presence, MSD social media presence in the state board. So we are seeing concrete transformation. We're seeing that our state superintendent is around schools. We're seeing the collective bond between the state board and the state superintendent, and how we're trying to bridge that gap with the Maryland Association of Boards of Education. But really a presence, and I think President Crawford, you spoke on this, maybe attending a school board meeting, going around and seeing, just schools outside of just traveling with the state superintendent. I think those things are needed. A parent, a teacher, they want to know that in education, they feel seen, they feel heard, and that they feel noticed. And when they don't feel noticed, they feel defeated. And when they feel defeated, sometimes that hinders the academic setting. So finding that balance. And I would say the last thing is going back. How and where do we focus on our families? I think, how do we bridge that gap between home and school? And I think that's going to be the greatest struggle. We see, a lot of these mental health challenges, and we see, going back to Ms. Williams' point, the early intervention, how do we bridge that gap? How do we get our families engaged in an educational environment, an educational system, to know, once again, that they are seen, they're valued, and that they can support those things, whether it be creating a curriculum component of taking this home, whether it be creating a space where parents can just take a sample of what a state test looks like, or a sample in the eyes of a state curriculum. I think those things are going to be needed.
Yeah, and President Crawford, I'll finish up the second question. You know, from my perspective, I think really what's coming out through this call is this collaboration, and certainly we're at the beginning. But I think as we move down this path, you know, really looking at what are the expectations. You know, we understand, you know, from my eyes and how I look at it, I think the MSD does a great job, and Superintendent Choudhury, I know you have conversations, as was mentioned, with our superintendents, and the information drills down and the execution takes place. There are a lot of times where as a board member, we do get information from our superintendents, but I would like to see that come as we are doing here, but even more so consistently from the state board as to, and it could be very much even just a simple white paper or something that goes out directly to board members that, you know, here are the highlights. I know MABE, MABE does a great job with follow-up from your meetings, the board meetings that you have. It's very hard for board members to break away and be there. But really kind of bringing out, we know what Kerwin, and I'm not trying to jump ahead, but we know what Kerwin looks like. There are 1,000 questions in each jurisdiction that are all different than the next, maybe some familiar, but to allow that opportunity for us to truly understand what are the next steps, what happens if it pivots, you know, what happens, you know, not that it's one size fits all, but the smaller school systems that still struggle with the funding, even with the blueprint and how that's going to look, just really trying to understand expectations, I think is huge. And I think all of that can come together with having these types of conversations. I think, you know, one of the examples, and maybe it's structured, you know, that there might be regional meetings or regional discussions. You know, maybe there are certain state board members that have a pod of systems that you know, that we can really collaborate a little bit deeper. I love hearing, I know Mr. Johnson mentioned, I loved hearing at the beginning, you know, what would it look like if we had some visitors? You know, and I know it's harder in some of the far reaching parts of the state, but it really means a lot and matters. And I think that will translate over to the trust, to the collaboration, as well as allowing the locals to be able to then move forward and execute. Because it's not lost on us that, you know, we certainly are, you know, a key player in executing the plans and really following through. If we're not successful, then the state's not successful. But I will just end, I think this is great again. So, you know, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue down this path. And I just hope this steam is in the engine and we just keep going down the tracks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Superintendent, did you want to say something? I thought maybe you.
No, I'm just listening. I'm just in the administration here, sitting, listening to board members. So I don't want to interject as the state superintendent. I mean, first of all, it ain't that hard to drive to Kent County or anywhere in Maryland. I've done it on a Honda Accord by myself, driving it. I can do it. They can do it. Anyone can do it. So it's possible. So it's not scary. It's very easy to do the drive. Some of the roads are bumpy, but you can do it. So you know, I think that's now that I've done, you know, every aspect, every part of the state, and they're very unique and very different. And, you know, I understand a system like Kent County, you know, for example, like, you know, just because you're smaller doesn't mean the cost of that thing is smaller. And so, you know, and so there's just a lot of, you know, to implement a high quality X, right, it's still going to cost you, right, the same cost, right, and you might be not getting enough for that. So there are conversations to be had around that. The only thing right for now, in terms of things that I've heard, you know, in terms of, you know, having, hearing from the State Department, feeling the State Department. I've said I rather get in trouble for engaging too much than not. And so I'm still going to want to stay true to that. I'm not going to stop on that. I can assure you, you will know our perspective, whether or not that perspective makes everyone happy. You will get our perspective. I understand there was a lack of leadership and radio silence during COVID, and it's, you're not going to get it right. The challenge is, can you get it right enough that everyone can at least understand and respect it, versus not respect it and create tension, right? And so and I think, one of the things I hear from you guys, and I appreciate hearing this, is like, you can't have, there can't be 24 definitions of what students able to read looks like, right? Like we have to have a standard definition. Now, how we get there and what kinds of strategies, right? There's flexibilities built into that, right? And so I think that's like striking the tension between those things, right? Like between flexibility and mandates and strategies and research and all of those things. I'm constantly obsessing about those kinds of things. And so I appreciate, the way you get around that is by engaging and talking and people understanding. And so I think that's something I'm hearing loud and clear. So I hear you there. The other piece is, part of feeling the department, and I really like that, like feeling the department. And I think it's very important that the department is felt. I always like to say, there's only 24. We can figure this guys out. Like there was 1,200 in Texas. It's a little different. And so we can figure this out. But you can't figure this out if the department doesn't come out and go ahead and make the first move to engage. Like, it's not like the department does have to move outside of 200 West Baltimore Street and really like say, hey, I want to come down. Hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do that. And so I think that's not lost on me. I think people think like, hey, it's one and done. No, it's not. We gotta keep engaging. And so I hear you loud and clear on that. And I think, one of the things the state board told me early on when I came is like, there's been kind of this experience with the department. It's like, hey, here's the cake. It's already baked. Eat it, versus like, hey, we're thinking about baking a cake and here's what the ingredients we're thinking. How does that feel in terms of your region and that region, and what does that look like? And that's going to matter. And I always remember that metaphor because I don't want anything to feel like, hey, here it is and here's what it looks like. I mean, with the blueprint, right, we're all going to have to implement the blueprint. You're all figuring out how to get to starting pay at 60,000. That alone is a very big challenge because if you look at your starting pay is all over the place, right? And the theory of like, hey, we've given you enough money to just get there doesn't really hold true if you start doing the math and what that looks like with everything else. So we're going to have to figure this out in collaboration with the AIB as well as the assembly. I think the premise is right. It would make us one of the most competitive places in the country, hands down, and we should all try to reach that. But how we get there, right? Hey, you all should just get there by 2024 and so be it. That's not going to work. And so, all those things matter. And so I hear you loud and clear. I really like the metaphor of the department's presence should be felt. Like I said, I rather get in trouble for engaging too much than not. And so I hear you loud and clear on that. So I'll just share that for now, President Crawford.
All righty. Anything else from our board members before we go to the next question? Okay. Want to now just talk, I'm sorry, please.
I was just going to say, so I've been to lots of PGCPS board meetings over the, I don't know, decade or so before COVID. So I know how to get there. If Arundel or Kent County would like a visitor, I am willing to do that. I think Arundel, I'm only about 20 minutes away. Kent, I'm willing to venture over the bridge if Clarence gives us the okay to do that at some point.
Absolutely.
Just let me know.
There's multiple bridges, I learned. It's not just one bridge. It's a bridge, and then there's this cute little bridge, and then you get through it. So.
I can probably get the minivan over multiple bridges. I'm betting other moms have probably done it before.
So on that note, we are very, very much interested in participating. So if you would give us some notice, we'd love to come out. one of the things that Jean Halley suggested just before the pandemic hit was, why don't we even look at potentially holding a couple of regional state board meetings? So maybe we would do one on the Eastern Shore, maybe one on the West, or maybe in the South or something, whatever. But I want to put that on the table as a possibility as well, that maybe we would just do one of our meetings in one of your communities, invite the adjoining communities. But at a minimum, we're definitely willing to travel, to come out, because I think you just learn so much more when you can just sit and just listen and just talk to people. So we have a lot. One of the things we have, one of the goals that we gave to the superintendent was improve our outreach and engagement. So we've been trying to do that ourselves. We got a long way to go. As we look at the moving forward with the strategy, which is designed to help us execute the blueprint, I want to just say a couple of things. One, we are intentionally leaning forward, working with the AIB. We've had a number of conversations. I had lunch on Monday with the chair of the AIB. And really what we're trying to do, and we have established a committee on our board that focuses on accountability. They are doing the same. They're creating the advisory boards. And we're really focused on the two boards coming together in a way that complements each other and furthers our goals of improving the educational experience of our children. So we're trying to minimize bureaucracy, and we're trying to figure out how we can work effectively together. We plan to, we want to hold at least one joint state board AIB meeting probably by the fall. We'll be having ongoing conversations. Mohammed's folks are talking to them at least once a week. I've had several conversations with the chair, talked to the executive director over there. So we're trying to, you can do so much more when you talk. When we look at this strategy, it's really, as Chip said, how do we gain ownership across the state, that ideally this does not become a State Department of Education or State Board of Education plan, but it's a Maryland plan. It's a plan that Maryland can get behind. So we're very much interested in that. And as you know from my background, I'm learning education. I've been in business and government, and I just sent a note out again to our board, which is a great group of folks, that we've got to really stay focused. Most of these major initiatives like this fail. If you were going to put money on whether or not the state would be successful, the smart money would be to bet no, because it's about 60–70% or more of the time organizations have tried to do major change initiatives, they fail, or they come in substantially below what they thought they were going to achieve. Knowing that and thinking about it, we are trying within our board, constantly reminding and working with our members about staying focused on what the big picture is. The second major area where organizations get into trouble is engagement. They don't engage the right people often enough to get the buy-in to make it work. So as we talk about this and look at communications and partnership with you, is really want to get your thoughts about how we can, again, starting just a conversation, that this is just the beginning, but how can we work together in a partnership that respects our different roles, but still allows us to focus around big issues like improving education for our children? How can we do this better? How can we do this better? So just want to open this up to an initial set of thoughts about what we can do and how we can work more effectively together for the benefit of our children.
I think, if I can just add, I think we're seeing it right now. I mean, I really believe this is the first step, this collaboration. I mean, to have these, I mean, I know this is more of a broad approach and beginning, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, if we're able to go into this space and work together and collaborate, you know, and understand where we're all coming from, I think this is key. I mean, this is huge in being able to align and be partnered. And I hate to use a term from the business world where I come from, but have that buy-in.
Yes.
You know, and have that, you know, I mean, that's really, once we're, and I just keep hearing it. And one of my biggest takeaways is when we're all in this and we're all in it together and we execute and we align, we have greater chances and better chances. And I think, you know, obviously the students will benefit, everyone will benefit, and our success and really why all of this has happened and why we're here today will prove fruitful. So I think this is great. I mean, I'm just a huge fan of what's going on right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Goetz. I think this is great also. One comment that resonated with me was a few minutes ago, we can do so much more when we talk.
Yes.
When we communicate with one another, when we engage, we can get the job done. The good news is we're all here because we care about our students. That's why we're here. So it's really clear, as Mr. Goetz said, this is a start. We need to continue to have sessions such as this. At the local level, as a board member, I think it would be nice if I had someone, for instance, at the state level to whom I could just send an email or give a phone call because I have this question or this concern or whatever. I think it's a great thing for us as board members, and I think we probably have wasted some opportunities, and that is we need to be able to share with one another. We can share our best practices, and we can share our successes, and we can even share our failures so that we know how to move forward. And from my standpoint, Ms. Morrow, you are welcome to visit Anne Arundel County, and any other member, you're welcome to visit Anne Arundel County, whether you have to come across those bridges or what. Absolutely welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Nivek? Yes, sir.
Yes, I would just echo what my two colleagues have already said. This is a great start for partnership, and one of my biggest thoughts is, you know, I think one thing that has helped us as board members is when MABE does invite the state superintendent and the board president to our conventions. I would like us to see, you know, even as we begin to be in the space of educating, bringing in other stakeholders. You know, we have PZAM in there as well, and really figuring out how we all have the same mission to educate our students, but how do we all come to the table all at once to ensure that all voices are heard? And I think being all parties, MSD, State Board, MABE, PZAM, being more intentional about coming together and finding a solid time when we can all just come to the table and really focus on making sure that we're making this impact, and really, as Joe said earlier, finding a way to, you know, partnering, and as Bob said, Mr. Silkworth said, you know, finding that board member or whoever to call and really rely on and say, hey, this is what's going on. What are you seeing from your side of the table, and how can we use that to inform our local stakeholders?
And I want to echo, this is a great opportunity to speak with you all directly. I think I would love to have these continue throughout the year and continue with intention, as Nivek mentioned. And the intention that I see is like, if we are entering into budget season, maybe we should be talking about budget, having these roundtables to discuss items around budget. As we begin to present our buildings and our construction or major renovations, maybe we should have some conversation around that collectively. We've been very successful in Prince George's County implementing our ACF program, our alternative school construction funding program, where we're building 6 new schools very quickly. And so the ability to share that lessons learned and an opportunity with other school systems to know how we're able to get these schools funded and built so quickly. And now that the state is on board with it, you know, I think it's a great lessons learned. We just finished our climate action change focus work group, and we won an award. We would love to share those ideas and this information. Again, it's about sharing successes so that it can be duplicated across the state. And I think that if we look at how the school year typically flows, we do our CIP, we do our master's facilities planning, we do our budgeting all around a certain time of the year. We're all dealing with that collected at the same time. So let's come together collectively prior to that moment happening and say, hey, this is what we're dealing with. What are you hearing? How are you handling that? You know, so that we can go back and make decisions as board members with other ideas in mind. Because most of us, like I'm like you, Mr. Clarence, I didn't come to the board with an education background. I'm actually a project manager in real estate development. And so I came focused on that. But I've learned a lot in my 8 years about IEPs and ESOL and budgeting and things like that. I learned a lot of it. I brought a lot of it to the table, but I've learned a lot of it through MABE and conversating with the other board members and listening to the community. I think this forum is a great opportunity, and let's use that to share information, share our successes, sort of chat about our challenges and figure out solutions together. So this is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to definitely talk to our board about is seeing if we can actually identify a board member as a point of contact, so that you for each of the systems, so that if you just want to call somebody, you can call them. We work very hard with trying to communicate, and as the superintendent said, we probably over communicate a bit with the board on information. So I'm going to be talking to them about that, and if you think it'd be useful for us to come out to your local meetings or something, or visit a school, let us know. Love to do it. Love to do it. But the ideas of thinking around times of year and seeing where we can lessons learned, the collaboration. So we're very much interested in figuring this thing out, and we come to it with a sense of humility that we know we don't know everything. So we need help. We need help. We need your help. Help us to do a better job. Help us to do a better job of working with you. Francie, you've seen boards over the years as we get ready to think about this, moving into this blueprint and the like. Any thoughts or observations from your perspective that would be helpful to us?
I certainly think that the beginning of the framework that you're establishing here, it's more than a heavy lift. I'd call it a Herculean. It's going to be a Herculean lift, and people are already starting. I know that blueprint coordinators are working together. They have been meeting. MABE has an ad hoc committee on the blueprint that our chair of that committee is Joe Goetz. I think you talked about having a blueprint committee within your board as well? If
Yes,
that's-
we have one,
yeah,
yes.
okay.
Mhm.
I think that's important, but just it's hard not to run out of time. When you're trying to communicate and you're trying to collaborate, things always take longer than you think they will. And to develop, say, a draft of something, and you constantly are running to get, if you want input, to get the draft to a form that you're willing to take, that you want it to be a thoughtful draft so that people can provide thoughtful input. And I think sometimes then we run out of time, we run out of road there. And so then it happens in a haphazard way. I just think that if we can make a concerted effort when we are, whether we're seeking input from you all or you're seeking input from us, to just bear that in mind, that the more time we can, the more lead time, the better. I think that's true, because then I think that kind of, if we don't have the lead time and then people don't really feel that their input has been in some way considered and potentially reflected, then that's there you go with that trust factor again. Then it looks like you're just almost doing it to check the box. You wanted us to be candid, so it needs to, this is a really good down payment on that trust bank, or whatever you want to call it. And I believe very strongly in that. And I think all the things that we talked about, the clarity, the consistency, all those kinds of collaboration, all those things will enhance that credit in the bank, if you will, of trust that we have between one another. It's not a one-way street. It's not a one-way street at all. So I think that's really going to be important moving forward, because the blueprint is not going to impact every school system the same way. It's just not. And funding is, so just trying to, the state superintendent, I was happy to hear him say, we can work this, we can find a way through this. We can find a way to work this out. And I think we have to just be diligent about it and stick to our guns on this, stick to our word on that.
Thank you. We are approaching the end of the time. Want to give anyone that has any final comments, opportunity to chip.
I just, again, I want to thank everyone for their participation this evening. And, you know, I've been on the state board for just now close to 3 years, and we've had a lot of challenges, but we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us. We now have a transformational leader in our state superintendent. We have a committed state board of education. We have a group of boards of education throughout our state who are committed to making education the very best it can be for the students of Maryland. We have a group of stakeholders throughout this state who want the same thing as the state board and the State Department want in terms of transforming education for the kids of Maryland. So the state board has said this is our priority. And it's exciting to see our stakeholders invested, contributing, listening, wanting to have ownership in this plan. So thank you for your input. As we've said, this is just the beginning. There'll be many opportunities for more conversation. And we just can't fail to get this right. We must make it happen. Failure is simply not an alternative here. This is the kids of Maryland. They need our help. We're here to do it. We can do it. So thank you for being a part of the effort to make this successful. We just can't let it be anything other than that. So thank you for your part in making it work. Thanks.
Thank you, Chip. All right. Chen.
Yeah, to tap on that, I think we want to have a lot of buy-ins, but you all play a very important role called champion. Yeah, without your leadership locally in our local school system, how good is the plan still cannot be perfectly execute at the local level. So I admire you and looking for more collaboration and definitely driving many bridges. Yeah, I think that's what we can all do. And with that in mind, also the regional board meetings, that would kind of get more local school system and our stakeholders to get engaged. I think that's our intention. And bear in mind that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's greater than 2. And I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for your time and effort.
All right. Robert and Nivek.
Thank you. I just want to echo my colleagues. We all do what we do because we care about our kids. And it's extremely important that we come together like this, because when we do that, it kind of sets the stage for our young people to be successful. I've always said in Anne Arundel County, and I will say that it's probably true across the state, we have great kids. We also have great staff. And I'm going to do anything and everything that I have to do to help them, to help our young people achieve the dreams and the goals that they have, because each and every one of them, when they leave their home, they want to go to a safe school and they want to be able to reach that goal, achieve that dream that they have. And this type of collaboration is extremely important so that can happen. So I thank you so much for this. And I look forward to many more opportunities like this. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo my colleague. And again, thank you all for this opportunity. And I have seen the transformation. I have seen how MSD and the State Board has already transformed the lives of our students and our educators just by a presence on social media, the presence of changes that have already been in process. So to commend you, President Crawford, and your fellow board members and superintendent on that hard work and the work that's yet to come. Education is no easy task, and it takes a team, and it takes everybody to work together to make it work. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for being intentional about how do we move forward in our school systems and our greater educational system.
Great. Okay. What I want to do now is just close this out, being respectful of the time. We're after a long day. I'm sure everyone had long days and things that they were engaged in, but I want to again say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your support, your leadership in helping make the local school systems a great success. We look forward to the partnership. We are open. Anytime you have questions or concerns or whatever, feel free to reach out. We're not going to be defensive. We're going to listen. And where we can, we're going to make some adjustments because our goal is the same, educating children. So again, thank you so much for participating in our inaugural session. And again, just have a great evening and a great summer. And we look forward to the invitations to come out and visit. And we definitely will do that. Again, thank you very much for everything.
And you'll get an invitation to the MABE conference, no worries, Mr. President.
I was worried about that. I thought I was okay at the beginning. I sort of screwed up. And
I will just add the offer. If anyone gets over the bridge and they need any guidance, I will lead you into Kent County. So it's all good. So.
Okay, sounds good. We look forward to that.
Have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Great night, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.